Hello students, this is Shweta Roy. In this video, we are going to discuss about the Mughal administration and the court. In this we have the subtopics central administration, provincial administration, army administration, mansabdari system. Then we have the topic revenue system and agrarian relations. Then we have the case study Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar. Also we have the case study of kings and queens. So these are some of the important topics which we are going to cover in this video. Now we will discuss about the Mughal administration and the court. So the Mughal administration was based on both the Indian and the Persian systems of administration, and basically it is stressed on two components: the absolute authority of emperor and the strength of the army. So first we will discuss about the central administration in this. So the king was the supreme authority of both civil and military administration, and he was assisted by a council of ministers. So the council of ministers were the wazir. The wazir was the finance minister, and the famous wazir of Akbar was Toderman. Then you have the Sadr us Sadur, and he had three important functions: chief advisor in religious matters, minister for grant and donations made by the king, and the chief judge after the emperor. Then you have Mir Bakshi, and Mir Bakshi used to look after the administrative works of army. Then there was Khane Saman, and he attended to the needs of the royal household. These officials were directly appointed by the emperor. So this was the central administration system. Then we will go through the provincial administration system, and in this empire was divided into subas or provinces, and each suba was headed by a governor, and the governor of the suba was called subedar. Now the diwan looked after collection of revenue, land revenue, taxes and civil administration, and the suba was further divided into sarkars and parganas, and the kotwal was in charge of the city administration. Then you have army administration. In this, the king was the commander in chief of the army, and after king, a minister called Mir Bakshi looked after the administrative works of the army. The Mughal army had infantry, cavalry, war elephants and artillery. Then there was a mansabdari system. It was a unique system introduced by Akbar. The term mansabdar refers to an individual who holds a mansab. Mansab means a position or rank in the official hierarchy. So all those who joined Mughal services were enrolled as mansabdars, and this was a grading system used by the Mughals to fix rank, salary and military responsibilities. The rank and salary of a mansabdar were determined by a numerical value called jat. The higher jat, the more prestigious was a noble's position in court and the larger his salary. Now in Akbar's reign, there were 29 mansabdars with a rank of 5,000 jat. And by Aurangzeb's reign, the number of mansabdars had increased to 79. And it was important for the Mughals to recruit mansabdars from diverse backgrounds and not just Turanis and Iranis. So they recruited mansabdars from Indian Muslims, Afghans, Rajputs, Marathas and other groups of people. And this was because the empire expanded to include different regions. Now the mansabdars performed both civil and military functions, and they received their salaries generally as assignments of land called jagirs. Also the mansabdars had rights to the revenue of their assignments and they collected it through their servants. Now we will discuss about problems regarding Jagir. So this system later created many problems. Earlier during the reign of Akbar, the revenue collected from the Jagir was roughly equal to the salary of Mansabdar. But by Aurangzeb's reign, the revenue collected was often less than the salary. Now due to a huge increase in the number of Mansabdars, they had to do a long wait to get the Jagir. Now the increase in the number of mansabdars created a shortage in the number of jagirs, and because of this jagirdars tried to collect as much as revenue possible till they had jagir, and because of this the peasantry suffered very badly. Now we will discuss about the revenue system and agrarian relations. So the taxes on the agricultural produce was main source of income for the Mughal rulers, and peasants used to pay taxes through jamindars, and they were rural elites. Now all the intermediaries between king and the peasant, including the local headmen of the village or powerful chieftains, everyone were called jamindars. And like this, jamindars in the Mughal administration collected tax from the peasants for the king. Actually, they were like a middleman or link between king and the peasant. And they were very powerful in the Mughal administration. Akbar brought many of the reforms in the land revenue system, and his revenue minister Todalmar introduced a land revenue system that came to be known as Todalmar's Bandobast. Now he made a survey of crop yields, price and the areas cultivated between the period of 1570 to 1580, and on that basis he fixed the tax on each crop in cash. Now each Suba or province was divided into revenue circles, and these circles fixed its own revenue rates for each crop. Now the revenue system was known as JAP. The income from land revenue was very important for the stability of the Mughal Empire, and Mughal court was the symbol of pomp and luxury. And because of this, the land revenue was very important for them. The luxury required large amount of money, which could be only fulfilled by land revenue. So the peasants were vital for the economy of the Mughal Empire. Now we have the case study of Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, Akbarnama and Anak-e-Babri. Mughal Emperor Akbar had more than 4,000 books in his library, and he encouraged study of mathematics, logic, astronomy, geometry, and even moral education. He also ordered his close friend and courtier Abul Fazl to write a history of his reign, and the result was Akbarnama. Akbarnama was written by Abul Fazl in Persian, which gives the biographical account of Akbar. Now this Babarnama was arranged in 3 volumes. First volume deals with genealogy and gives a biographical account of Mughal ruler up to the time and when Akbar was 17 years old. Now the second volume gives details of 18 years of Akbar's rule, and Babri forms the third volume of this book, dealing with the matter of administration and revenue of the state. Akbar the Shining Soul. Now Abul Fazl was one of the 9 James in Akbar's court and the author of Akbarnama, which was a biographical account of Akbar. And in this, one of the verses, that means ghazals, Akbar has been mentioned as a shining soul. Abul Fazl joined the Mughal court in 1874 and he believed in the divine powers of Emperor Akbar. Now here is one excerpt from his book. Every now and then the world is saturated with riches. Then a shining soul comes down out of the sky. Khaqani, seek not in this age for such a thing. Sit not by the way, for the Karwa will come late. And through this, the main features of Akbar's administration could be understood. Here Abul Fazl is saying Akbar Emperor was at the hill of the affairs and he was assisted by the Diwan or the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister was sometimes known as the Wazir, who looked after the general administration. Also there were separate departments like Justice, which was directly under the control of Emperor himself, and the revenue administration and military administration were in charge of Mir Bakshi, and under him was the military paymaster Bakshi. Akbar's empire was also divided into 15 provinces or subas, and each province was placed under a governor, which was called Subedar. Now they maintained their own setup, and the military commander was known as the Fauzdar, and the town police commander was known as Kotwal. So this is what written in the Akbarnama from Abul Fazl. Then the topic is nobility. So the Mughal nobility mainly consisted of Turanis from Central Asia, Iranis from Iran, Afghans from Afghanistan, and diverse groups of Indian Muslims. Rajputs were also among the Indian groups of nobility, and the nobility also formed a part of Mughal court. And it is a remarkable achievement of Akbar to have ensured loyalty of these diverse groups. He ensured that there was no challenge from these groups to his empire. And in the 17th century AD, however, the loyalties of nobility to the empire weakened. Many of the powerful nobles asserted their own self-interest. Then you have Mughal court. So the Akbar built a new capital city at Fatehpur Sikri, which is near Agra. Initially, it was a fortified complex with royal palace and other buildings. And this complex had been provided with victory gateway called Buland Darwaja. At his court at Fatehpur Sikri, discussions took place at Ibadat Khana, in which ulemas, Brahmins, Jesuits belongs to Roman Catholics and Zoroastrians took part, and some of these religious scholars emphasized rituals and dogmas. They were also referred as bigots. Their system of beliefs created divisions and disharmony in society. And Akbar, after abolishing sati, persuaded these bigots, many cult leaders for reform. And these principles were also incorporated in Sul-e-Kul. It was not only the composition of religions, but also music, art, literature, and other cultural achievements of people belonging to different religions. And it was practice and achievement of the principles of Sul-e-Kul that Akbar advocated Deen-e-Ilahi. Now, some of the scholars regard it as the new religion, while others only see it as the principles of tolerance of Sul-e-Kul. Abul Fazl see Sul-e-Kul as the framing of a vision of governance. And this principle of governance is also emphasized by Jahangir and Shah Jahan, who were Akbar's successors. Now, this principle of Sul-e-Kul has been explained by scholars differently. Some regard it as Akbar's religious policy, while others see it as a feature of imperial administration of peace and harmony. And Akbar had ordered that all religions would be treated and tolerated equally in the administration of the state. So the basic feature of Sul-e-Kul or universal tolerance has been described by Akbar's son Jahangir in the following words. Sunnis and Shias met in one mosque and Christians and Jews in one church to pray. He consistently followed the principle of universal peace, which is Sul-e-Kul. Now we have the case study of kings and queens. So the Islamic Empire had seen its excellence under the Ottoman Turks in 16th century. And they had expanded greatly in Central and West Asia. And during this period, the Ottoman Empire had conquered the whole of the Middle East, North Africa, and also penetrated into Europe and formed Soviet Union. Now they ruled over diverse people like Greeks, Arabs, Slavs, and Armenians. The Ottoman ruler Sultan Suleiman reconstructed the Ottoman navy and dominated Mediterranean trade routes. And he came to direct competition in conflict with Spanish traders. Now in the Arabian Sea, the Portuguese were strong and they had also captured Goa in India. The Sultans of Delhi had strong relationship with the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman monarch was given the title Al-Kanuni. That means the lawgiver. Because of large number of rules, that means Qanun, he had passed in the region. And those rules were administrative procedures throughout Islamic domains including India, protection of peasantry from forced labor, protection of peasants from harsh measures and taxes, the authority of ulemas. Now these Delhi Sultans also used the power and authority of Suleiman for effective governance of India. And with the decline of power of Ottoman Sultans, the Delhi Sultan also began to decline. And the reign of Suleiman Kanuni was, however, remembered for years to come. His reign was particularly remembered for ideal governance. And to the east of Ottoman Empire lay Persia. So the 16th century AD was the period of glory of Persia. The Persians had also regained some territories lost to Ottoman Empire earlier. And it was under Akbar in 16th century AD that Mughal civilization saw its glorious extent with progress in music, painting, literature and other fields. Now we will discuss about the Mughal administration and the court. So the Mughal administration was based on both the Indian and the Persian system.